from Northern Ireland. We are back in the United Kingdom. In our last video, we left the country of Ireland, which was epic. But we are in the town of Londonderry. But they just kind of call it Derry here, D-E-R-R-Y. They have a fantastic parking spot just outside of the city that's free. And we were able to pull right in there up next to the grass. And the kiddies have really enjoyed a few days of just taking a break here. And of course, whenever we take a break, we also edit. But this morning, we are walking into the city. We're gonna go scope it out. There's a lot of history in this city, doing with the conflicts back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Now, we don't understand all of that, but we're gonna go take a dive into some of the monuments here, see if we can learn a little bit more about exactly what happened. But it's gonna start with a walk across the Peace Bridge. So let's go see Derry, Northern Ireland. You ready, Curt?
Let's do this. Now, one of the things about Derry is that this is a city that has an old historic wall that one time surrounded the city. Now there's bits and pieces of it everywhere. And as we approach the Peace Bridge, we come through a section of the wall, and the Peace Bridge was opened on June 25th, 2011.
So we are standing pretty close to the middle of the Peace Bridge. This bridge was built or opened in 2011, and it is designed in a curve meant to kind of mimic a handshake that would have stretched across this river. And the reason this is an important place for this bridge is back during the turmoil, the Troubles is what it's called to and referred to. These two neighborhoods were very divided. Again, we don't quite understand the depths of when, why, how, and all that. We hope to learn some of that today. But before the bridge was built, these neighborhoods didn't like each other, apparently. So this was the location that was chosen, and the handshake, I think, is kind of symbolic of trying to bring peace to the area. And from what we understand, it's done a pretty good job.
And another interesting fact that we learned about the Peace Bridge, the Peace Bridge was helped funded by the EU. Now, several years back, the UK had Brexit, which they pulled out of the EU. And so it's kind of ironic that this bridge was funded by the EU and the UK is no longer part of that.
As we get closer to the downtown area of Derry, we're almost done crossing this bridge. I wanted to let you know that this is the River Foyle, F-O-Y-L-E. As we wander the streets and through the museums here in the Guildhall building of Londonderry, we are learning about a really fascinating yet complex part of Irish history, the Plantations. Now imagine this, it's the 16th and 17th century. Ireland, a land rich in culture and tradition, is under English rule. The English crown, wanting to tighten its grip on the island, decided to implement a strategy called plantations. What this meant was taking land from Irish landowners, often through force or legal trickery, and giving it to English and Scottish settlers. The settlers, known as planters, would then establish a new settlement, complete with their own laws and customs. So how did they take the land? It was not with straightforwardness. Sometimes Irish landowners were accused of treason or rebellion, giving the crown a pretext to seize their estates. Other times, legal loopholes were exploited, or even outright intimidation was used. And who decided who got the land? Ultimately, it was the English crown that had the final say. Powerful figures in England, often with political or military connections, were rewarded with large tracts of Irish land. These new landlords would then subdivide the land and rent it out to English and Scottish settlers. The goal was literally to dilute the Irish population, weaken their culture, and ultimately make Ireland more English. It was a brutal and systematic process that had a devastating impact on the Irish people. One of the most significant plantations was called Ulster, and Ulster included the area where we are standing right now. Large tracts of land were confiscated from Irish clans, and new towns like Londonderry were established. The settlers brought their own Protestant beliefs and English ways of life, further alienating the Catholic Irish. The legacy of plantations is still felt today. It led to centuries of conflict and division, and many Irish people still harbor resentment towards the British. So as we walk through these historic streets, it's crucial to acknowledge the complex history behind them. The plantations were a dark chapter, but understanding it helps us appreciate the struggles and the triumphs of the Irish people.
So we learned about the plantation early on and the walls that were built, the walled cities that Great Britain built to sort of colonize this area, and I told you about that. And there they are right over there. But outside of here was the Irish people, the people from Ireland. And ironically, they had a different religion. So here in Ireland, their main religion was Catholic. And over in the UK, or over in Great Britain, it was Protestant. And so all the Protestants were inside the walls. That was Great Britain territory. And over time, the Irish people set in here, and there was many reasons. There was the potato blight that drove people to the city, but outside the walls, the city actually grew larger than the city inside the walls. And yet the people outside did not have a vote and were denied the right to vote. And they were denied the right to be represented by the government. And they had some deplorable conditions and unemployments and some other things. And that led to protests. And now this area outside of the walls is called the Bogside. That's what they called it, the Bogside. And this is now called Free Derry. They eventually started calling it Free Derry. But this is where all the people from Ireland, the Irish people, lived and worked and all that type of stuff. So I'm guessing that this was during Bloody Sunday right here. Yeah, 1972. And you can see the picture. This is as it currently is. So you can see the police in riot gear and also what looks to be stones in the road. I'm sure the protesters were throwing rocks and stones at the police. It happened right here in the street.
We already talked about the plantation period back in the 15 and 1600s. But unfortunately, this part of the world has a complex history that reaches into more modern time, a period known as the Troubles. The Troubles were a conflict that lasted from the 1960s to the late 1990s. It was basically a civil war between Protestants and Catholics. The Protestants generally wanted to remain part of the United Kingdom, while the Catholics wanted Northern Ireland to become part of the Republic of Ireland. There were a lot of violent clashes between the two sides, and sadly, many innocent people were caught in the crossfire. Bombs, shootings, and other acts of violence were a common occurrence. It was a really tough time for the people who lived here. One of the most famous events during the Troubles was the Bloody Sunday. In 1972, right here where we're standing, British soldiers opened fire on a peaceful civil rights march in Derry, killing 13 people and injuring many others. This event sparked outrage and anger around the world. We took a tour through a museum that focuses just on this period and the impacts it had on the people who lived in Derry. It's important to note that it is hard for us as travelers to fully understand things that happen in different parts of the world. So, I guess kind of as a disclaimer, we are dependent on the internet and what we can learn from museums and locals as we visit an area. We know that the Troubles here in Northern Ireland are a very sensitive topic, and we do our best to share with you what we've learned, especially during a very short visit here. Now, it took many years to finally settle this issue, and Curt's going to tell you a little bit more about what happened when they finally got to that point.
But in 1972, there was 14 protesters that were shot, and that was on the famous Bloody Sunday. And, you know, a war tribunal came in or whatever. You know, the government, again, it was controlled by Britain, and they found that the victims, the 14, they said they were bombers and all that stuff. And it wasn't until like 26 years later, and Tony Blair ordered a second investigation, which took many years. I think it was 12 years the investigation took. And they found the 14 people to be innocent. The stories about them having nail bombs and other things were a fabrication. It was a total cover-up. And they have since been vindicated. But just from kind of moving around the city and meeting people from Ireland, they still kind of feel like this is Ireland, not the United Kingdom. And so I don't think it's fully settled, although everything is very peaceful. But there's plenty of signs around here, plenty of evidence of what happened in the storied path. And it's just another example of how we travel and we kind of dabble in history. And it's just sad. It's just sad to know the human condition and, you know, how we perpetuate violence amongst ourselves, all for control. It's just sad. It's just kind of depressing. And so, you know, obviously history is not something that we go into a lot on our channel. And I think, you know, in our travels, there's certain times when we can't avoid learning about it. And this is one that I'm glad we learned about, but not really. There's nothing we can do to change the history, and it seems to continue to repeat itself. But in any event, this is our journey around the world, and this is our introduction to Northern Ireland.
One thing I want to make sure that we add to this video: some events around the world can cause the worst people to rise to the surface. But sometimes it can also shine a light on the best people, very special people, very good people. And the Troubles did just that. A man named John Hume. This remarkable Irish nationalist politician was instrumental in bringing an end to the Troubles. His dedication to peaceful solutions earned him numerous awards, including the Nobel Peace Prize in 1998 that he shared with David Trimble. But his contributions extended beyond that prestigious award. He was also honored with the Martin Luther King Jr. Peace Prize, the Mahatma Gandhi Peace Prize, and the Philadelphia Liberty Medal, further solidifying his reputation as a champion of peace. The Troubles did eventually come to an end with the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. It brought peace to the region and allowed people from both sides to start rebuilding their lives. Today, Derry is a much different place. While there are still some tensions between Protestants and Catholics, the city has made significant progress in terms of reconciliation. It's important to remember that the history of the Troubles is a complex one, and there's no easy answer to the question of why it happened. But the understanding of the past can help us work towards a better future for everyone. Now we're going to walk back across the Peace Bridge to where we have our van parked over there, see how the kiddies are doing, and see what's up next, guys. Hi, Vanna. I see your ears. I see them. Hi, Pumpkin. Hi, G. Did you think we were never coming home? Did you think we weren't coming home?
All right, so I was just sitting here chilling here in the van, and these kids came poking around. So I opened the door, and they're really, really cool. What's your name?
Ollie. Ollie.
Ollie? Here you go, Ollie. Signed card. I gave these guys cards. They're from right here in Derry. What a cool place. What are you guys' names? Yell them out.
Jake, Jacob, Liam, Garth, Ryan.
How old are you guys?
I'm 14.
14. Cool. You go to school around here?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for your hospitality. We love it here. But the weather, not so good.
So much.
Everybody tells me you don't come to Ireland for the weather, right?
No.
It's been 3 days since we've seen you guys, and that is because Curt went down with some sort of flu bug. Say hello so they hear your scratchy voice.
Hey, my voice is actually a little bit better today, but it has been brutal. Really, since Dublin, I kind of got it down on my chest, and I've been operating it less than perfect. And, well, it kind of flared back up again. So hopefully we can get this stuff out of my chest. But
Yeah, so we left Derry, which was a really cool dive into the history. We enjoyed that. We hope y'all did. We drove about an hour to a campsite that all the reviews said looked comfortable so Curt could just rest. And it was incredibly comfortable. We rolled in on the final weekend of the season, so they were having a barbecue. All the regulars were here. We got invited for burgers and hot dogs and karaoke. Curt even got up and did a little bit of Garth Brooks.
well, to be honest with you, I was like, no, I'm not feeling well. This is not going to be good. And they would not take no for an answer. And so I had to be a good sport about it.
Serious peer pressure, and I was an absolute no. So Curt did step up and do that. We stayed here a few days, let him rest. It is a beautiful campsite with great views, cows roaming around the fields next to us, and the owner, Dave, was incredible. So I'm going to put the name of this campsite here, and if you're just south or a little bit southwest of the Giant's Causeway, spoiler alert, that's where we're headed soon. This is a perfect campsite to do everything you need to do. Probably the hottest showers we've had on the whole journey.
I mean, the whole campsite just is hitting. I mean, the people who stay here regularly are great. And Dave, the owner, is just as nice as they get. Super cool guy. And the facility is everything we need. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a very good stay.
We did. 30 pounds a night, so 60 pounds for 2 nights that we stayed here. That's probably about 70-ish US dollars. But it is time to hit the road. We are probably 5 or 10 minutes from some of the most beautiful coastline in the world. And we're gonna go see it. Let's go. So we're trying to go see some white rock cliff places down by the beach. We've encountered these signs in the parking area. Now I knew there was some of these down here from my Google research. So Curt walked on down to see what we could figure out. What'd you figure out?
Well, there is a turnaround down there, but I don't know what the point of going down there is. It's just, you want to go down there? We can't park.
So we've pulled up at White Rocks Beach, struggled through the process of parking our giant van, but a local worker that was down here moved his van to give us some room to park. The people in this area are so kind. But now we're gonna walk down this little trail to an actual beach. Now it's been a while since we took you to a true sandy beach. But this place is known for its sand dunes, which they do a lot of work to protect. There's a few surfers out in the water. It's a beautiful beach, and it has white limestone cliffs. So it's called White Rocks Beach. Now down there in the distance, you'll see an arch. You probably can't see it from here. Don't worry, that's our next stop. Just beyond the arch is an old castle sitting up on the coast, or some ruins of one. That's our next couple of adventures here today. Gonna just pop along this beautiful coastline for a few miles. So this coastline is really, really pretty, with the white cliffs where we were before, and now it's turned black, and there's also jaggedy arches up against this bright green grass. But if you look behind me, a lot of cars. We're on a tourist trail today, guys, so we got to share with everybody else. But right up here from this lookout, we're going to be able to see our next stop. And off in the distance back there, that is the city of Portrush. And our campground was maybe 5 miles behind us. So, what you thinking, Curdy?
It's a beautiful day, you know.
Oh,
they
yeah.
say you don't come to Ireland for the weather, and we've had some spotty days, but today, at least right now, it's sunning, so Fingers crossed it holds, but our experience is it'll change. I'm not trying to jinx us. I'm just trying to enjoy this beautiful place.
Well, and with the bright sunshine, we're actually getting to see the beautiful blues and greens of this water along this coast. Now we're gonna take y'all and show y'all Dunluce Castle, D-U-N-L-U-C-E. It's castle ruins. It was built in around the 15th century. Some work was done on it in the 17th century as well. And it was, at the time, one of the finest castles in the area and was built to kind of take control of the trade of Ulster. Now, Ulster is back around the Derry area where they started building those plantations we told you about earlier in the video. But it was a Scotland family that came over, I believe the MacDonalds. There was actually a town that surrounded this castle area, the Dunluce town. During the 17th century, it probably looked a little bit like that. Well, let's get in this thing. I think we'll have to pay £6 a piece. So these are fireplaces here. All right, guys, we just showed y'all what was the stables. And the stair platform is where the king would mount his horses. Right next door are some accommodations when important people came to visit. And that is an old fireplace. You can see the chimney. And there's a few of them through here. Now, it's said that since these were important people, they had a prestigious spot on the grounds, and out their windows they would be able to see the really pretty manicured garden. Look at these rocks and how some of them have just chunked off but yet stayed together.
Well, you wonder how something can survive a building for thousands of years. And when you look at these buildings, the walls are like 2.5 foot thick. I mean, just huge thick, made with rocks, not blocks or bricks. They're made with boulders, basically. And the mortar they used back then, too, was pretty stout. And I believe this is probably a mortar that was brought by the Romans or whatever. But in any event, this thing's been here for a long time. And the shape of it is really, really good, especially down at the castle portion, which we haven't made yet. But they still have the round towers, gorgeous building. So this is an accommodation I could get behind right here. This is one of the smaller housing units, probably house multiple people, but look at this big, beautiful window right here overlooking the sea. And you can see from here, we're not even into the castle, so this would probably be like the staff or maybe family or I don't know, lords, whatever. But pretty nice. So we just crossed the bridge and we are immediately greeted by the gatehouse, and it's a pretty steep fall from the bridge, and the gatehouse would be a pretty tall wall, so it'd be tough to escape. And you can see how there's been damage done to the gate here. Wow. And the one thing, well, there's several things that I love about this castle, but I love these giant windows and openings. This is the base floor of the tower room. And I'm sure this was a little lookout. And of course you can't see real far, but if anybody were attacking, I guess you'd get a clean line at them. Unless of course they get up close to the castle walls. And you can tell we're in Northern Ireland because there are fireplaces all around this castle, and you can still kind of see where the chimneys go up in almost every room, and sometimes 2 or 3. And so clearly for the chilly, windy weather that they have here, and I'm sure right off the ocean, that the fireplaces were put into use quite frequently. And there's Snow. She's found a good little hiding place off of the main room of this huge castle, which really is in such good shape. And we do like to see it where it's not completely built back. We like to see it kind of in the raw stages, but still to be in this good a shape. It really gives you a good imaginative picture of what this place would have looked like back then. But back here, you can see the keystones in the wall where they would have built a ceiling. So again, 2, maybe 3 stories back here. So huge, so many different rooms. Wow, just crazy beautiful place.
I think this is our favorite kind of castle to tour. One where there's still enough of the structure to be able to use your imagination to know what it was like, but that it hasn't just been remodeled and brought to current, so you still appreciate just how old it is. And this one, wow, the views from this place, unbelievable. And the weather we're blessed with today, geez guys, this is not normal for Ireland, or the island of Ireland. Technically we're in Northern Ireland right now. Let's get back to the van. All right, so I do agree with what we had heard, that this coastline is some of the prettiest in the world. I love how the black cliffs just strike up against the green grass, and then when the sun is shining, that beautiful turquoise water. But we are about 5 minutes, literally, from one of the most famous places, not just on the island of Ireland, but this is like a top 20 bucket list destination in the world. But you're gonna have to wait till the next video, but I'll go ahead and tell you what it is. We are taking you to the beautiful and famous Giant's Causeway, some of the most epic and unique coastal cliffs in the world, in the next video. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. See you in a few days. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
If you liked this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really helps us a lot. And if you want to see more of our videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you know when new videos come out. We'll see you guys in a few days from somewhere out here in the world. Cheers.